Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Backyard Fantasy. Today we wanted to bring to you a Dynasty rookie draft. We know the rookie drafts are coming up probably sometime in August, and we wanted to get this out early. The way this works and the way we're laying this out is we're going to do 3 rounds. Yes, we know most dynasties go probably about 5 rounds for the rookie drafts, but we're going to set this up for 3 rounds, 12-team league, show you what we feel are the top 36 overall. And pretty much Sam and I are just going to alternate between our picks. Some of them we'll give a little bit of detail on. Some of them we won't because we don't think it's 100% necessary with some of these rookies to dive into too much details. We've definitely done our research, and we are pretty high up on where we are putting the people that we are picking. With that said, we're going to run it over here on Sleeper. This is going to just lay out everyone in order. We're doing this not as a snake draft, but as a normal dynasty draft should be for the rookies, where you're just going 1 to 12, 1 to 12, 1 to 12 in each round. With that said, Sam, why don't you kick us off with who you believe is the first pick, which I think is pretty consensus.
I think this is pretty easy. Not going to reinvent the wheel here. I'm just going to go with Marvin Harrison. Obviously, a generational talent here. Uh, Pretty decent quarterback with Kyler Murray. He's viewed as like a Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson type prospect. I think it's a pretty easy 101 overall pick here.
Yep. Next one's pretty standard too. Not remaking the wheel or anything here, but Malik Neighbors. He doesn't have as good of a scenario where he's going with Daniel Jones as his QB, but he'll be a good fit. And I think as the Giants get themselves together, he will definitely be a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, I think the top two are pretty easy. I think number three, I'm taking Rome Odunze here. I know he isn't necessarily set up to contribute immediately this year, but he's going to be attached to Caleb Williams for a long time. He'll be at least the number two weapon, I think, in the next year or so after Keenan Allen most likely retires here. And I think long term, he's a great fantasy asset to own here.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that pick. My next one might not be 100% with everybody, but I'm going with Jonathan Brooks over in Carolina. I think he's got a decent situation he's going into as Carolina is in the rebuild. But really, it's just because Brooks is just a talent. And I think coming off his injury, he's going to be surprising a lot of people. And I think people are going to regret not grabbing him as soon as they can.
Yeah, I mean, good running backs win leagues, so I kind of like that pick there, even though that's maybe not consensus.
Hmm.
But if I'm number five and you leave this guy on the board, I'm pretty happy to take Brian Thomas right here. Obviously, Calvin Ridley is no longer in Jacksonville. Christian Kirk is still there. Evan Ingram is still there. But I think that there's still an opening for Brian Thomas to be that number one wide receiver threat in that offense. And I'm taking him in Dynasty everywhere I can.
Sure. I could definitely agree with that. As long as Trevor Lawrence lives up to his contract. The next pick, I'm going to be taking Xavier Worthy. I know he's not everyone's consensus pick, probably at number 6 or anything on those lines, but he's pretty much going into a situation that is really, really, really good. You have Patrick Mahomes. He's surrounded by talent. Team just won the Super Bowl. Depending what happens with Rice, I think he could have a really, really big chunk of that offense, and the ball's going to come his way a lot.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's hoping he could be the next Tyreek Hill. Obviously, that would be a huge, huge ceiling and shoes to fill there, but
Yeah.
definitely could. I think at number seven, I don't love the landing spot for this player, but he's just such an elite talent and was viewed as like a top 4 guy kind of coming into the NFL draft in terms of a potential fantasy asset. But I'm going to take Brock Bowers. I don't expect him to necessarily come swinging out of the gates here because he's in Las Vegas. They have Devontae Adams there. They have Michael Mayer there. But most dynasty tight ends don't perform year one anyway. He's just such an elite level talent that I'm happy to take him here and stash him on the team.
Yeah, it makes sense, especially when tight ends are so hard to come by. Next, I am going to take someone who might not be this high for some people as well, and that is Keon Coleman. You could say it's because of his personality. I find him very, very entertaining when it comes down to it. But really, it's just the scenario he's walking into. Buffalo completely demolished their wide receiver room, and this guy's big and he's got good hands. So I'm expecting Josh Allen to have a field day throwing to him.
Yeah, similar to Xavier Worthy, just due to the situation, you got to bump Coleman up a little bit there. And similar in terms of just good situation, number one overall, tied to a good QB. I'm going to take Lad McConkey here at the 109. I just think he's great value here, especially in PPR formats. I imagine he's going to be like a target monster, especially with, he's really only competing against Quentin Johnson and, Joshua Palmer. I think he
Yep.
could be, I think he could actually end up as one of the top performing rookies this year. But we'll see moving forward. I think he's going to be a high end wide receiver too.
I mean, the Chargers wide receiver room is demolished too, as you know. It shouldn't be too difficult. You got Herbert throwing to you. Next one, I'm going to be taking Leggett. Another mention, obviously, I picked Brooks earlier. Clearly, I'm sticking with the Carolina rookies. I think Bryce is going to have a lot more weapons around him, which is going to be really good because it'll give him a time to actually do what people expected him to do last year in that trash team that was available to him. I think he's just a value pick here. I think he's a no-brainer. He's going to be first round pick, no matter how you spin it. There's just talent, and he's going to take advantage of it.
Yeah. And speaking of talent, a lot of people probably are wondering why we haven't picked Caleb Williams yet. But personally, in one QB leagues, I kind of let QB slide a little bit. I'd rather have that elite upside at wide receiver or running back. But I think Caleb Williams is just too talented to let slip any further past the 11 spot here, maybe even 10. Again, he's a prospect viewed at the same level as Patrick Mahomes, and that's a pretty powerful comp. He might not ever get there, but I imagine his floor is at least pretty high, and the Bears will definitely be sticking with him at least for the next few years here.
Yeah, for me, at the 12th round is out, we're going to take another running back. We're going to take Trey Benson. He's on the Cardinals. I think he's definitely going to benefit from being in a good scenario, just like Marvin Harrison Jr. I think their offense is going to be really opening up a lot on the field with Kyler Murray just getting a ton of weapons around him. I expect a lot from him, so I think he's a solid pick at 12, especially with that value that comes with him.
Yeah, no, I think Benson, great year. Obviously, kind of dependent on if James Conner goes down or misses any time this year. But even if he doesn't play a lot this year, he's probably the heir apparent for 2025. So good running back to stash there. And then at the 201, I'm going to take Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels is actually the QB I'm most excited about in this draft, just due to his rushing potential. Obviously, there's some rumors of Brandon Ayuk going to Washington. Not confirmed at this point, so just speculation. But he has such great rushing upside. I think he's an underrated passer of the football as well. I like his chances of being a top 12 QB, top 10 QB overall in fantasy this year. I'm thrilled to take him at the start of the second year.
If he's top 12 this year, I'll be very surprised. Wouldn't be upset about it, but I'd be very surprised. Mostly because it's Washington. Next pick, I'm going to take Jalen Polk over on the Patriots. His situation's a little bit more iffy. Obviously, he's going to be relying on someone that'll be picked later in Drake May. Who knows? They could be an upcoming duo that could be really, really strong. Or it's just a setup for failure as the Patriots have not managed to do anything the last few years since Tom Brady left.
Well, I'm very happy that you're not before us in our actual Dynasty draft because I love Jalen Polk, and I'm hoping I can get him in the late second in our Dynasty draft there. I think that's a great pick. But you're leaving some first-round talent on the board still, and I'm going to take Ricky Pearsall. Obviously, like I kind of mentioned with Jaden Daniels, if Brandon Ayuk gets traded to Washington or Pittsburgh, wherever it might be, Pearsall's value, I think, jumps up a bit here. I think he has an argument of being like kind of end of that first round there if that goes through. But he's a first-round draft pick. He's a talented wide receiver. He'll probably be more on that slot role. PPR kind of always benefits those types of players here. I just like his chances, and even if Ayuk doesn't get traded this year, I don't see him being in San Francisco in the long-term future there.
Yeah, they definitely haven't expressed that they want him to be, so poor guy. Next one, another little bit of a flyer for me, Adonai Mitchell. Some people might not see him in this spot. I like him here because I think he's a really big boomer bust. When it comes down to it, there's a ton of potential. He's got size. He's definitely very good at running routes, and he's got Anthony Richardson next to him, who I think is going to have a really really good year this year, coming back off his injury. The Colts are looking strong. It's going to be an interesting year to watch, and I think he could be a big reason that they succeed or don't.
Yeah, I mean Mitchell's an interesting one. Obviously, kind of going into the NFL draft, he was like talked about even being like one of the top 5 receivers taken, just because of the athletic tools that he has.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, there have been some personality issues that have been mentioned, which might be a little unfair to bring up here. Uh, I think the Colts, it's either going to be Mitchell or Josh Downs who gets that wide receiver 2 role.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just not as willing to take that bet. But, at the 205, I'm not super thrilled about this pick here either, but I'm going to take Blake Corum. I don't think Blake Corum is taking the job from Kyron Williams, but, the Rams camp have hyped Corum up a ton over the past couple weeks here. I think he will maybe see like 30% snap share just to give Kyron those breathers. And again, if Kyron misses any sort of time here, Blake Corum instantly kind of gets into like that starting running back flex role. So kind of dependent on Kyron missing time or eating into that snap share. So I'm not thrilled with this pick, but I think in terms of talent, you have to take him here.
Yeah, he can live on your taxi squad for the year.
Yeah.
With the next pick, I'm going to take Polk's counterpart, Drake May. I think this is the time for the next QB to come off the board. He has the talent. I know his last year wasn't so great in college, but he was an absolute monster in 2022. So I expect him to rebound pretty strongly. I'm curious to see really just what the Patriots do overall with Belichick being gone. And it's just an entirely like new org from top to bottom because of that, since he was just a staple there for 20 plus years. Yeah, going to be curious. Drake May is definitely one I think who edges out the next pick.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think May has to go in this range, and I think you can really flip-flop him with the next pick here too, which is J.J. McCarthy. In terms of overall talent, May obviously has upside that McCarthy doesn't, but McCarthy's situation is just so much better. He has Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, T.J. Hawkinson, who's going to be coming back from injury at some point. The Vikings, Kevin O'Connell Kevin O'Connell? Yeah. Great offensive coach in the league here. I think will be set up to succeed pretty early on. He might have to beat out Sam Darnold, which is not something I thought I'd say in 2024. But if he does, I think just as that pocket passer, you're seeing a pretty solid floor there.
Yeah, it's hard to believe he still is even in the league. With the next pick, I'm going to be taking Roman Wilson. I think he is in a good situation in Pittsburgh when it comes down to it. I know the QB room is a little iffy, but he's almost guaranteed to be wide receiver 2 with Deontay Johnson being shipped out. I think he's going to land into the wide receiver 2 next to George Pickens, which is just going to give him upside in itself. I think there's a lot of talent in him. He had a really good career over in Michigan, so I'm expecting it to just pan out for him in a really good way. But we don't even know who the starting QB is going to be 100%, even though they say it's going to be Russell Wilson. So we'll see. If Fields is returning punts at the start of the season, I will be very surprised.
Yeah, I mean, Roman Wilson, too. Just Pittsburgh has always just done a historically great job of drafting and developing rookie wide receivers. So that alone is probably reason to take him here, especially if he's the number 2 in that offense. There's just a built-in floor there that you kind of got to take. And after Wilson, this is where I think the draft starts to get interesting. You're taking some deeper shots here. But I'm going to take my chance on the second tight end here, and I'm going to take Benson out of Washington. Washington, they just don't have a ton of weapons right now. They have McLaurin. I'm not convinced Dotson's anything that special of a wide receiver, too. And I think
appointment.
Yeah, especially if, Luke McCaffrey, who we'll talk about in a bit here, or Ayuk ends up coming here. In any scenario, Benson, I think he's going to be that nice, safety blanket there for Jaden Daniels right over the middle of the field. He was used a ton at Kansas State. I think he's an exciting prospect. And again, you have to temper your expectations with rookie tight ends, but he's going to be tied to the number 2 overall pick in this draft. And I think the Washington Commanders will kind of improve as the season goes on here.
Let's hope not. Um, with the next pick, I'm going to be taking the running back in Miami, Jalen Wright. I think he's got a lot of potential. I don't think he's in the best situation going to the Dolphins with Mostert and A-Chain. Definitely taking A-Chain, Devon A-Chain. I don't know how to say his last name 100%. Either way, you got Devon and Mostert up in the 1 and 2. Interchangeable, you could say. Some people think Devon's going to be taking that spot away from Mostert, but Mostert was an absolute monster last year. I know, I had him. He gave me a lot of touchdowns. It was wonderful. But he's also 32. I don't know if Jalen Wright really moves in to really getting much playing time this year, but I think there's a lot of upside. The kid is super fast, and I think that's what you got to bank on here. I think he's going to be an excellent grab, and you're going to want to grab him because he's going to go, and you can stash him on the taxi squad. Odds are you're not going to see a lot this year, but in 2025, I think that's when you start to see a change, especially because HN definitely has a little bit of an injury problem, and I think that's not going to stop.
Yeah, no, I think Wright's a great pick. Again, I don't think he'll necessarily perform a lot this year unless you see some injuries to Achane or Mostert there. But if he has a chance to be that number 2 back in Miami next year, you just want a piece of that Miami offense there, and I'm pretty happy with Jalen Wright at the end of the second round here. And with the 211, I'm going to take Troy Franklin here. He's another guy that going into the NFL draft, there was some hype around, but he kind of just started to fall off. People weren't super thrilled with his route running or some of his dropping issues that he has here. But he's going into a situation in Denver where he's with his college QB, Bo Nix. He has a realistic chance to take that number 2 wide receiver role over Marvin Mims. I don't think Cortland Sutton is that dominant of a wide receiver where it's Marvin Mims not being a bona fide wide receiver 1. I think he has a good chance to be that main guy in Denver there and really grow with Bo Nix there.
All right, I can see that. Next one for me, I'm taking Jermaine Burton over in Cincy. This year, I don't think you will possibly see a ton from him because T. Higgins is obviously still there. Who knows if he stays there through the entire season, which would change a lot of things. I'd be surprised if Cincy doesn't try to move him because they're clearly not going to sign him past the franchise tag. He's going to be gone next year. I would be shocked. But the kid is an absolute monster. I don't know if you've seen this guy's stats, but he had a 69% catch rate and average over 20 yards per catch. The kid has talent. So if he's given the chance to shine, I think Joe Burrow's going to have a field day with him. I just don't think you're going to see it next year. But he's got a lot of upside, and who knows if one of them goes down. Chase obviously was hurt last year. There's room for him to potentially move in and get some catches.
Yeah, and Burton's one of those guys, he just dropped because of some of the off-the-field issues there. Mm-hmm. If T. Higgins is gone next year, though, and Burton's able to show some flashes this year, he probably won't get to that 500, 600 rookie mark that everyone cares about there. But I'm just looking for flashes out of Burton this year, and if Higgins goes in the offseason and they don't draft a replacement early on next year, Burton can be in for one of the biggest steals of this draft. I absolutely agree with that. And I think at the 3-1 here, this player, again, we're starting to get in the range where we're not taking people who are drafted to be starters. It's more looking at their potential situation and what upside there is moving forward. So I'm going to take Marshawn Lloyd. Really, none of the running backs in this draft got super ideal landing spots. I think Marshawn Lloyd was one of the more talented running backs in this draft class, though, and he's headed to Green Bay. Green Bay obviously brought in Josh Jacobs on a pretty decent contract, but if you look at how it's structured, they could really get rid of him after year 1, and they're not taking that much of a cap hit. So with how Jacobs' contract is structured, I don't think A.J. Dillon's a premier back in the league. I'm happy to take Lloyd and just taxi him here and, hope and see that he starts eating into some of those carries that go to Jacobs and Dillon here.
Okay. No, I can see him there. I think he's a good value pick. I know you're big on Jacobs this year. I am not. So who knows what will happen with Lloyd. He might end up sneaking in there and getting some carries and taking some runs from Jacobs, depending how he starts out. Jacobs is anything like he did last year, which hopefully he doesn't for the Packers' sake. You could see Lloyd moving in. My next pick, not much to say about him, but I think he's in an interesting opportunity, and that's Malachi Corley. He's got Aaron Rodgers behind him, barring Rodgers is healthy, which I think he is. All signs point to him being very, very ready to go this year. The dude is built like a truck. And I think that there is opportunity here, especially in PPR formats, that you could see him bringing in points this year. That is all I will say because it is the Jets. So time will tell if it actually pans out, but there's definitely potential here for PPR format. You could maybe see something along the lines of like Debo Samuel-esque. I add esque because even Debo could be hit or miss. It all depends on what he's getting out of the backfield sometimes. But there's definitely a lot of upside grabbing him here and stashing him on the taxi if he's not a starter at the beginning.
Yeah, going into the NFL draft, I really like Corley as a prospect here. I don't love the Jets landing spot just because they have Garrett Wilson, they have Mike Williams there, and I think he's going to be competing with Xavier Gibson for that third wide receiver role there. Obviously, if he wins out that spot and he's that kind of slot wide receiver, I kind of like the comp of him to like Randall Cobb with like Aaron Rodgers. I'm not saying that's what I expect in terms of production, but I certainly like the opportunity there. And with the 3-3, again, not thrilled with Bo Nix if he's my starting QB in any league, but he's a top 12 pick in the NFL draft. He's going to start for Denver. He has decent enough weapons where probably better than at least Drake May walking into that situation. So I'll take him here if he could just be like a solid floor QB and maybe grow into more of that improved pocket passer role.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to take him at the 3-3 here.
It's a possibility. Time will tell, right? Plus, he's got a cool name. With the next pick, I'm going to be sticking here with Sam's high praise of the Washington football team. Sorry, Commanders. I'm going to take Luke McCaffrey. Obviously, with the rebuilding Commanders, it goes without saying, like we've said with every other pick that we've talked about with Washington, they're young. There's definitely potential and a lot of things that they're going to be trying to prove over there. So there's definitely some upside when it comes to McCaffrey coming in here. I don't think he's going to be a starter out of the gate. I'd be surprised if he sees a ton in the field in 2024, but there is a possibility of it happening if an injury happens, and the kid's got talent.
Plus, he's related to Christian McCaffrey, so you just got to
exactly just by out basic algebra. He's going to play.
Yeah, just take your chances there. It's worth it. And if he touches the field at all, I think that'd be pretty interesting. But the next guy here,
there's no way.
You never know. I don't think Dotson's anything special, so we'll see. But my next guy here, this is in the range where I'm going to start taking some dart throws on running backs here. I like Ray Davis out of Buffalo the best out of that kind of dart throw range. I don't think James Cook is a goal line back, and although I don't have any thoughts that Ray Davis is going to be the starter there, if he can carve out a goal line role in Buffalo and maybe get some of those early down carries, I think he has some value here, especially in a pretty decent Buffalo offense.
All right. Yeah, I think he's worth taking a shot. In the same range, maybe this is a little late for him, but I'm going to take Javon Baker next. Similar story to what we said about the Patriots previously. It's an interesting scenario where he definitely has some talent here, but he's in an iffy position. He has a little bit of drops as a concern during his career in college. It's going to be interesting to see how the Patriots offense takes all this youth and puts it up together to see what they can put on the field this year. I think they're going to be, when it comes down to it, like probably one of the more entertaining teams to watch, either because they're going to surprise people or you're just going to watch a disaster in action in 2024, which is okay. They're in rebuilding mode.
Yeah, no, I'm hopeful that it's not a complete, Zach Wilson Jets train wreck, but it absolutely could be.
Hmm.
And there's obviously no bona fide wide receiver one there. You have, Douglas, you have Jalen Polk and Javon Baker. Those would be the three names I'm most interested in there.
Hmm.
But I kind of like him here as a long shot to maybe take over that starting outside wide receiver role in New England there. And in this pick, I'm going to go back to tight end. I'm sorry that I'm taking all the tight ends on you here, Kyle,
You like them
but
all.
I'm going to take Jatavian Sanders for Carolina. Again, I think Bryce Young will take a decent step forward this year. They brought in a new offensive coordinator, a new coach, so I think they're looking at a pretty good situation there. Sanders was a pretty athletic, good wide receiver at Texas. Um, I don't think Tommy Tremble is going to be the long-term starting tight end for Carolina. So I think that David Sanders by the end of the season will take that role there and hopefully be a decent short game option for Bryce Young there.
All right, for me, I am going to take someone who, for some, may say this is a little late. Jalen McMillan for the Bucks. I think he's going to be wide receiver 3 this year. I think he's going to slide right into the slot. I think there's definitely some potential there for him to just go right in there next to Mike Evans and Godwin. And I think Baker is going to do some dump offs, and he's has the potential to do it. So we'll see what happens. I have a little disdain for Tampa because I'm a Birds fan, and last year didn't end so well. But I think they got a rookie here that has some talent, and it could definitely give them some production next year.
Yeah, no, I think McMillan beats out Trey Palmer pretty easily there,
Yeah, he's
especially if
on my
Mike Evans.
taxi, and I regret it.
Well, you can always dish him to someone for like a fourth, I'm sure. But
5 fantasy football bucks.
yeah, I think McMillan, especially if you don't think Mike Evans is going to be there long term, is worth
Yeah,
the hold. So
he's not getting younger.
no, definitely not. Yeah, and with the next pick here, again, I'm going to take another running back dart throw here. I like Kamani Vidal for the Chargers. And a lot of this is just situation. They have Gus Edwards, who I don't think is anything special. They have J.K. Dobbins, who is always injured. And again, maybe at this point in his career, probably getting to the point where he's one more injury away from being retired. I just like Kamani Vidal's chances of like maybe being able to take over an RB2 role or maybe even outright winning the job here. He's a pretty
Yeah,
explosive runner. He's pretty fast. I'm just going to take my shot here and pray for the best, basically.
yeah, that's what we do at this stage, right? Which is what I'm doing. I'm going to take his time. Aldrich Esteem, actually, but I like his time better. This kid is built like a truck. I think he's going to be a power horse coming in to Denver, and he might surprise people. I know he's sitting behind Williams and McLaughlin right now, and I like both of them a lot, so I don't know how much playing time you're going to get, but neither Williams nor McLaughlin are power backs. So it's going to be interesting to see him come in. He might steal some goal line touchdowns, which is probably where he's going to see most of his work this year, if he sees work at all.
Yeah, no, he's. I feel like that Denver running back room's got to be pretty wide open. I don't think Sean Payton's sold on Javonte Williams and Jaleel McLaughlin. It seems like a good player, but he's obviously not a three down back there. So, worth a shot there
Yeah.
on his team.
Kind of reminds me of David Montgomery, but that's high praise, so we'll wait.
He's pretty slow, Steve, but you can get a decent, goal line roll if you're taking him at the end of the third. That's not bad value there.
Yep.
And on my last pick of this mock draft, I'm going to take Tyron Tracy here. Um, Again, it's a situation thing for me here. He is competing with Devin Singletary. I don't expect him to win the starting job from Devin Singletary. But if he can be involved in the passing game, which sounds like the plan there, maybe even if he's involved in kick returns, which I think might be a little bit slept on, kind of going into the fantasy season here. If Singletary were to miss any time or Tracy were to really kind of take off here, he could all of a sudden be in that flex conversation or starting running back conversation for you there.
No, that's a good pick here. I think he's walking into a situation too where he could be very strong. Similar to my last pick here, Bucky Irving. I think that he is in a very good situation, just like my last pick, McMillan, or 2 picks ago. McMillan, I think Tampa Bay is up and coming. I think that there is some upside in the Tampa Bay room for him to potentially get some carries this year. We'll see. Either way, I think he's going to be a good stash in the taxi. This guy is quick. So I'm excited to see if he actually gets some playing time this year.
Yeah, definitely. I think all of these guys at the last 12 picks here are kind of in that dart throw range, but maybe you got to hope that one of them turns into that next Puka here. So hopefully it's one of these guys.
Yeah, there's definitely some opportunity in this rookie draft, guys. It's not as strong, I don't think, as last year's class was, or the year before that when it comes down to it, when it comes to these rookies. But there are definitely some really strong wide receivers and running backs. And as you guys all know, those of you that have done Dynasty, you could get really lucky. Some of it's just straight up like a lottery, and then someone shows up and starts crushing things. So we hope this helps. Anything else you want to add, Sam?
No, I think you wrapped it up pretty good there. Draft Marvin Harrison if you can, and then the rest is all kind of luck from there.
I think Neighbors kind of fits in a good situation. After that, it's kind of all luck, except for the fact that he's got Daniel Jones throwing to him. All right, everybody. Thanks. We definitely love to hear your feedback and what you guys think of these picks. If you'd switch any, we definitely had a few that we were on the fringe of coming into the top 3 rounds. Obviously, some of them probably would have came in the 4th round. But when we wanted to squeeze these people in, we definitely wanted to show you guys the ones with the highest potential. So definitely let us know your thoughts. Thanks.